Hello everyone, Darkeyser here, welcoming you to the beginning of my new Space Engineers Survival How to Play series. Space Engineers has undergone quite a few changes in the last few months, and while there are several very good How to Play series out there on YouTube right now, many of them unfortunately are becoming somewhat dated. They do not include some of the new features like infinite maps and oxygen, and some of the other survival features that we currently are using. I'm seeing lots of new players on the forums, and they're asking questions about how to start the game and how to avoid dying and other such trivial things. And I thought that it would be a good time, with all of the changes being made, for us to go ahead and start up a new series. For those that are familiar with the game and already know how to start a game, I'll put a link in now that will take you to the actual gameplay. For those who are new to the game and are not really familiar with choosing all of the settings and setting up your maps and setting up your worlds, please be patient and follow along. We're going to start a new world. We're going to go to the custom world. Survival How To. We are in survival mode. We're offline. Maximum players is irrelevant. I'm going to leave the meteors turned off for right now. I'm going to change the asteroid amount to infinite normal density. We're currently having an issue with the game where some minerals are proving to be rarer than they probably should be, and that probably means that because the game is still in development, that mineral rarity probably needs a balance pass from the developers. At the moment, they're currently working on new netcode, which will enable us to play multiplayer much better, and bringing planets into the game. So while they're working on that, unfortunately, they're not going to be doing a lot of balance passes on things. So I prefer normal density so that you have a good number of asteroids close enough to your starting position that you don't have to worry about running out of resources unless something dire happens. You have several different ways to start. We're going to go to the asteroid map. You start in a respawn ship with some basic materials. We're going to go to the advanced setting. We are in survival. For the purposes of the video, I am going to turn up all of the speeds as well as the inventory size. I normally play in realistic or one notch up from realistic, but for the purposes of the video, so that you don't grow old and die waiting for me to actually accomplish something, I'm going to turn the max objects down below 64. I am not using a top drawer computer. I will be upgrading my rig here in a couple of weeks, but until then I don't want lag to spoil our fun. World size is going to be unlimited. We're not going to worry about respawn ship cooldown. Hopefully we won't be dying enough for that to be an issue. I'm going to set the view distance at 10 kilometers for the same reason. I don't want to have too much lag by seeing all kinds of objects on my screen just yet. We're going to turn off the auto healing, leave the weapons enabled. We're going to turn on the trash auto removal. That gets rid of a lot of the drifting objects and helps the game performance. Enable oxygen, the jetpack, and the voxel destruction. We're going to click off delete respawn ship. That's what we're going to be arriving in, and we don't want it to go anywhere. Player names, thruster damage. We're going to turn off cargo ships. Cargo ships, you can have non-player character ships that will appear on the map that you can then go out and capture. We're going to worry about that later. We can always turn that back on. We're going to leave the sun rotation on, spawn with the tools and so forth. Permanent death, destructible blocks. We are going to turn off the enable tool shake. Sitting on a small drill ship is a little like riding a mechanical bull on Thursday night. So I've done enough of that in my career. I'm going to try to avoid that. We are going to leave the random encounters on. So the developers have been putting random stations and random ships in the game that have been sent in on the workshop by some of the players. So we may over the course of our exploration, we may run into a ship or a station that we have not built. And with any luck, it won't have a bunch of guns on it trying to shoot us. I am going to turn on the station voxel support. If you don't have this on and you attempt to build a space station and you don't fasten it to an asteroid, the station is going to be free-floating and it may drift if you bump into it. If you turn on the station voxel support, once you start a space station, even if it's not fastened to anything, if you start it as a station, the blocks will be snapped to the grid and they will stay where you put them until you actually convert it to a ship and then try to move it. So we have all of that going on. Again, we're on the asteroid map. I am not going to tinker with mods right now. We're going to start with a purely vanilla game just to see what we get. Now, I'm going to break here and we're going to resume once we come back. And we're back. Here we are in our respawn ship, sometimes known as the Ugly Yellow Bus. As you can see, it's definitely seen some better days. It starts out a little bit dinged up. Some of the panels are damaged or incomplete. I think it adds a little bit of character to the ship. In a role-play type of setting, you can almost see yourself as some sort of a lone prospector. You've sunk all of your savings into buying a used spacecraft from Bob's spaceship lot or whatever, and you've headed out into space to find your fortune. Great. Now what do we do? Well, the first thing we're going to do, we're going to open up our terminal with our T key, and I'm going to go to my gravity generator and I'm going to turn it off. As you can see, it uses 90 kilowatts of power, and as long as I have it running, I've got less than a day's worth of fuel time, as you can see in the lower right hand corner. So we're going to turn that off, and our fuel time jumps to 7 days. So now we have 8 times as much loiter time. We have power to run the gyroscope and to power our cockpit that we use for recharging our suit. You can see in the lower left hand corner we have our energy, which that's the energy for our suit, and that will be at 100% as long as we are sitting in a cockpit that has power going to it. You can see that the oxygen is dropping a little bit though. Unless you are sitting in an enclosed cockpit that is piped into an oxygen system, your oxygen in your suit will continue to drop at a very small rate. You can carry oxygen bottles in order to recharge it, and we'll get into that. So now we're going to hop out of our seat, and for some reason the default setting is for the jetpack to be off. Here's our ship. 1 gravity generator, 1 medical room, and not a lot else. Most of the rest of the equipment is back here. 1 empty cargo container. I'm going to get rid of my hand drill temporarily because it's heavy. I don't need to be lugging it around. Then we're going to hit our G key to open our toolbar config. We're going to right click on some of this stuff. We won't be needing it. We are going to need our light armor slopes. We're going to need a drill, and we're just dragging and dropping all of this stuff. We're going to need an ore detector. We're also going to need our welder and our grinder, and we should probably get a spotlight. Since DX11 came in, the map is somewhat darker than what I am used to, and as a result I have found that using lights is much more beneficial now. It's actually useful to have lights on. And now I begin cutting up my ship. The respawn ship has a lot of parts to it that are not really essential. I'm going to be cutting this door off. Why is the door showing up as a connector? I think we have a glitch, ladies and gentlemen. The connector is over there under the belly of the ship, but it's showing up here as a connector. Strange. Well, the game is still in development, so I think that this proves that more than anything. I'm cutting off this door because the cockpit of your ship is not sealed. Anyway, if I were to put an air vent on one of these ports to try to pipe air in, it would not open. Several areas of the ship are not sealed, so the air vent is smart enough not to operate. Now we're also going to, let me see, let's start up here. We're going to start up here with our collector. These are normally used for catching ore that you've mined that you're just dropping in. But again, we're working under, or we will be working under zero gravity much of the time, at least when we start. And you can just take ore and put it into the ship. You don't have to worry about necessarily having something like that to drop things into or to funnel things into. We're also going to be taking off this connector and several of these armor panels. These are covering up the booster ports on the back of the refinery. You can attach modules to these ports to increase the efficiency of your refinery. And because I am the kind of guy that I am, I'm going to take off some of the thrusters on the back of the ship. When you are building a ship in Space Engineers, you want to have at least one thruster in every direction as well as a gyroscope. And that is primarily because the thrusters have a setting known as inertia dampener, which basically means that the thrusters are going to try to hold you in place. If you don't have a thruster in each of the 6 primary directions and you start drifting, your inertia dampener can't kick in because you don't have a thruster for it to fire, and you may continue drifting out of control in that direction. Generally, anything with the phrase out of control in it is not good for you. We're also going to get rid of that extraneous piece of material. And we're going to get rid of this. And we're going to come around to the front. Now, when I first started playing Space Engineers, I used to spend an inordinate amount of time repairing my respawn ship. I would make sure I'd grind things down, and I would make sure that I had enough material, and I'd go around and I'd fix all of this stuff. And in many cases, it doesn't even take any material to fix. You just need to actually just go ahead and get a welder, and you need to weld it up. But as I kept playing the game, I started to realize that I'm going to wind up cutting up the ship anyway. So I went from trying to save the ship and have it all welded up and pretty to cutting up the ship and using as many of the resources that are on it as possible. So right now I don't really see the respawn ship as a ship so much as a big collection of parts that I haven't harvested yet. When I get to the point where I actually build something of my own, that's going to be a ship, and that's going to be something that I'm going to want to try to take care of and not just fly it around and wreck it. And again, I'm cutting off all of this material. The cockpit is wide open to the elements anyway, so you can't pressurize things. So I see all of this as just extra material. And I might as well get a hold of as much extra material as I can, as early in the game as I can. Because the material's not doing me a lot of good fastened to the ship. So we're going to cut off all of these angles. Now you can see the oxygen port that's designed for the medical room. If I had my oxygen generator piped into that port, then I could recharge my suit oxygen from the medical bay as well as recharging my health. Unfortunately, I don't have it piped in. The ship does not start with it that way, and you do not have sufficient materials when you first get started to do something like that. So we have this last row of blocks that we're taking off, and as you can see, my energy has gotten low. My energy has dipped into the red. fortunately for me, my cockpit is right here, so I can recharge. You can move an entire stack of material by double-clicking on it, rather than right-clicking on it and having to drag everything over and then type in a specific value for how many you're moving. You can see the energy recharges fairly quickly. My oxygen is still above 55%, so I'm still good there. And my suit is now full. Now, most of the players that I know would consider this sacrilegious, but I'm going to get rid of the medical room because it contains a lot of really cool stuff, and I'm going to need it. This is a perfect example of having to make sacrifices so that you can survive. Now I'm going to take a few plates, and if you hold down your control key and you left click on something in your inventory or in your cargo container, then you can get 10 of them. If you hold down your shift key, you click on something, you take 100 of them from your inventory. So we're going to get a few pieces of our inventory. And we're going to build, ooh, I had some blocks I missed. We're going to put down an ore detector. Now we won't have all of the components we need to finish building this right this second, but we'll have those momentarily. Because what we're going to do is we're going to go to our cargo container. We're going to open up our inventory. We're going to take all of our medical components, all of our girders, which are only used for making windows, bulletproof glass, which is also primarily used for windows, my hand drill, which I'm never going to use, and the thruster components that we also will not be needing right away. We're going to go into production. We're going to go to disassembly, and we're going to click disassemble all. Now again, I have everything cranked up to the point where things are disassembling at 10 times their normal rate, so normally this would take a little while. And we're going to pause this temporarily, and what we're going to do is we're going to build the last 25 detector components. And then we're going to put that back on disassembly. Detector components? They went to the cargo container. I see. Okay. Your hand drill has a small ore detector on it. Now we have our hand drill. You can page through your hotbar using the greater than and less than keys, the comma and the period on your keyboard. The period will move your hotbar to the right. You can see that you have 9 hotbars all total. The comma will move it to the left. We hit our G config, we go back to our character tools, grab that down, hit G again to close that up, and here we are flying around in space in a suit. And this is what happens when we get close enough to something that is not stone. Stone does not show up on your ore detector, but just about every other mineral will, including ice, which is not technically a mineral, but you use it for the purposes of making oxygen. We have nickel, we have ice, we have iron, and we have other things on other rocks. So we have some good stuff here. Let me go ahead and fly back. Now again, I have my inertia dampeners on so that as I'm flying, if I stop or take my finger off the forward key, the inertia dampener kicks in. If I turn the inertia dampener off and I thrust a little bit, then I'll just keep drifting. And that more accurately simulates what space would actually be like. So now what we're going to do, as I said before, the Do we have an oxygen bottle? Yes, we do. We're going to hop in our cockpit. The oxygen in my suit's getting down to about 30%. As long as you have an oxygen bottle, when your oxygen hits 30%, you get a signal that says that the oxygen was refilled from the bottle. And now we can go to here and I can look at the oxygen bottle, and it used 42% of the oxygen in the bottle. So I actually get 2 refills out of that plus a little bit. And now we're going to take our, it's not so much a respawn ship now as a respawn sled. But now we have an ore detector on it, and the small ship ore detector has a greater range than the hand ore detector that you're carrying around with you on your hand drill. The large ship and the respawn ship uses the large ship blocks, and so it counts as a large ship. The large ship ore detector is much longer range. And as you can see, we've already got a wealth of minerals. Our first order of business, as you can see, our fuel time, now that we've managed to cut a whole bunch of stuff off of the ship, our fuel time's gone up to 16 days. So if we were just sitting here recharging our suit and holding station keeping, we could last for a couple of weeks. The minute we start to thrust, as you can see, that goes down to under a half an hour. That's not good. That means that we're almost out of power. So what we need is uranium. And we see some of it right over here. I like to build my ore detector as soon as possible because it makes finding everything so much easier. Now, there are several different schools of thought with regards to mining. I found a nice patch of uranium. Now that I have the connector cut off of the ship, I can bring the ship down nice and low. I can go to my gravity generator and I can turn it back on. And now you see the indicator on the left-hand side that says artificial gravity 1G. Actual gravity is something that we're going to have with planets. Unfortunately, we don't have those yet, so that'll be coming. You can also see where it says oxygen none. That means that I am in a vacuum, and if I were to take off my helmet, I would die a slow, painful, probably very Buzz Lightyear sort of a death. But we have gravity, and what that means is we leave our cockpit, we turn off our jetpack, and now instead of flying around through space, we're walking around on our ship. Now we're going to turn our jetpack back on because we're not sure where our gravity field extends to. Here we go. It looks like we're fine. So here we are. We have gravity underneath, which is holding us down, which is good. And now we're going to get out our hand drill. We're going to hit L and turn on our helmet lights so we can actually see what we're doing. Although it is actually pretty bright out here anyway. We've got the sunlight reflected off the rock here. And now we begin mining. Now as you can see, what happens is as you start to mine, a hole forms and the gravity pushes the ore down into the hole. And that makes it easier to collect. There we go, 263 kilograms of uranium ore. Press R to pick that up. Now we're going to kick in our thrusters. We're going to fly out from under here because now we're stuck in a hole. We're going to put this into the refinery. You can hear the refinery kicking in. You can see the uranium starting to process. What's going on under normal circumstances, if you were refining something, the ingots that you would have left would all line up down here, and there would be one slot per ingot. However, because this is uranium and not iron or nickel, you can see the uranium appearing in the reactor. The reactor is set to automatically draw uranium ingots from a source if that source is piped in. Now this is called gravity mining or gravity disk mining. It's pretty slow. It's a little frustrating. It's a lot frustrating, actually. You can turn it down. You can turn your gravity generator down. If you hold down your left control when you're hovering over acceleration, you can now go ahead and set the gravity. And I think they misplaced a decimal point because 1G actually comes off as being a value of greater than 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the gravity to 0.2G, 2/10 of 1 Earth gravity. And that's primarily because 1/5 the gravity, 2.2G, is enough downward force that anything that I mine is still going to get caught and fall in the hole. But now I don't have to spend a whole lot of energy keeping the gravity generator turned on. And as you can see, again, 0.2G is plenty. Objects that are in motion would be more likely to pass by, but anything that I mine out of that hole is most likely, if it starts to drift away, it's going to ricochet off the underside of the ship and go back in the hole anyway. Our refinery's already gone through all the uranium we put in before. We put in some more, and then we put in our iron. You can recognize these things from the periodic table of elements: Fe for iron, U for uranium, etc., etc., etc. So, for those of you that say that you never learn anything gaming, not true. You can learn the periodic table. And then we're going to sit back in our cockpit. I'm going to turn off my gravity generator so I'm not wasting the power. You'll notice our fuel time has gone down to 7 hours, and that's primarily because the refinery is running, and the refinery uses 560 kilowatts. Productivity of 100%, effectiveness 100%, power efficiency 100%. We'll be dealing with all of that a little later. Another couple of things that I like to do early on. First, I cut up some of the extraneous things off my ship. I don't really need them, and so I go ahead and I cut them off the ship, and then I have those parts laying around if I want to build anything else. Something else that I do fairly early on is I like to clear up my control panel. Anything that you click on here has a block or a toggle that says Show Block in Terminal. If you toggle that button, that means that that piece of equipment is no longer in your control panel. It's hidden by this icon. If you click on this icon, anything hidden with that panel or with this button will become revealed. But it will be grayed out to indicate that it is, under normal circumstances, not visible. So then you click on that, and again, that's gone. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of all of these thrusters on the control panel because I control them with the WASD keys. I don't need them on my control panel. You click on one thing on the list, you click on something else on the list while holding the Shift key, and it will highlight everything in between. So we're just going to call this thrusters. We're going to save it as a group. Anything in a group has asterisks before and after it. We click on this. The title of the group is still here, so that I can still control the thrusters individually if I want. But now they're not cluttering up my control panel. Something else I like to do early on is I'm going to go to my GPS tab in my terminal. I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to click on New from Current Position. And that is going to create a GPS indicator. And because I am listed under Darkeyser, this is going to be Darkeyser number 1. These are my GPS coordinates on this map as far as the computer is concerned. Description, current position. I can change the name, and I'm going to call this Home Asteroid. And I'll leave the current position for now. If there were something here of any significance, then I could go ahead and I could change the current description. For instance, I can go ahead and put uranium in here. And when you're out flying around, if you're scouting, particularly if you're on a multiplayer map where one of you is working and the other one is scouting, which is a really efficient way to do things. Terminal off. There's my home asteroid. It's centered on my current location, so it's at 0 meters. One of the differences between the GPS and a beacon or an antenna, which you can use, you can get a signal from, and they will tell you your distance from that beacon or that antenna. GPS coordinates don't have an upper limit. You don't have to worry about flying out of range of a GPS coordinate. So I never have to worry about getting lost now. I can always find my way back to this point as long as I am able to access my HUD. So I prefer the GPS for navigation as opposed to putting antennas and beacons and so forth everywhere, because it's free. It doesn't take any resources to build. It doesn't take any power to run it. Now I have, let me get back into my terminal. We're going to go back into our inventory. We have our storage inventory, our storage filter. This will show us our storage containers. I can't access this personally because I'm sitting in my cockpit, so if I try to drag one of these things, then that goes dark. Likewise, if I try to drag anything out of it and put it on me, anything that goes dark like that, it's not connected. These are my system inventories, and these are all of my pieces of equipment on my ship that actually do something. And here are my energy inventories if you have multiple reactors. Now, I started with 2 kilograms of uranium. I have almost 5 kilograms of uranium now, so now I have a lot more energy available than I used to. So I'm not as worried about running out of power right this second. However, I am going to need a lot more uranium. But I'm inherently lazy, and I'm not good at gravity mining. I consider it extremely tedious and inefficient. So what I am going to do, we have an O2 bottle, good. What I'm going to do, we're going to take this and put it in our cargo container. We're going to go ahead, I'm going to hold on to all of these components for now, as well as a few others. We're going to go ahead and we're going to put a drill on the front of our ship. And again, I go around to my toolbar. And there's our drill. We have some iron under there. That's going to be good. Now, as you can see, just about everything, I have just about everything I need. Almost everything is lit up on here, except for the large steel tube. We need 3 more large steel tubes. I'll fly back here. You can double click on something, as I said before, and take the whole stack, or you can right click on it, you can drag it over to your inventory, and then you get an opportunity to pick an exact number. I will normally just take things in groups of 10, just because it's faster. Hopefully at some point in the future the developers will make something that's a little less clunky. So now my oxygen is refilled. My bottle is down to 16%. I'm going to get rid of all of this stuff. And then I'm going to go to my oxygen generator, refill my oxygen bottle, and you saw that the one that I placed inside the oxygen generator filled up almost immediately, and now I have slightly less than 2,000 kilograms of ice. This is one of the reasons why finding ice was not absolutely urgent, because you start out with enough ice in the beginning that you can produce enough oxygen to last you a while. Now I'm back in the control panel. This is the hotbar for my ship as opposed to my personal hotbar, which is why there's nothing on it. We're going to go to our G-config, and we're going to take our drill. We're going to drag that down, and we have a few options. Some pieces of equipment have more options than these. Some have fewer, but most of them have this many or more. You can toggle a block on or off. You can choose to use your conveyor system, which will convey the ore into, it'll convey it down a tube and into whatever piece of equipment you hook the tubes up to, or you can simply set it to reverse whatever state it's in and toggle everything on and off. So if I click on button number 1, my drill turns on, and if I click on it again, my drill turns off. I prefer to do this way. You can set it up so that you have to push your mouse button in order to activate the drill. You use a similar system when it comes to using guns. But I prefer to toggle things on. We're going to turn the HUD off so that you can have a little bit better idea of what's going on. Now, mining with this drill is infinitely more efficient than doing this by hand. Even though I did have to spend a few resources to make the drill, I can mine. The difference in how fast you can mine between the hand drill and a large ship drill, or even a small ship drill, really, is phenomenal. So I consider this well worth the time and effort to go ahead, take a couple minutes, cut a couple of pieces off your ship. You have to be careful not to go crashing around. I was moving a little bit fast there. You can see the little bits of red dust kicking up when I smash the side of the drill against something, and you have to try to avoid something like that. You don't want to break your drill. Yep, see, there I go. I'm at a bad angle because from here I can't see. There we go. I can see better now. Alrighty, and we hit 1 again. Now we come over here to our port, we hit our T key, and here we have the fruits of our labor. 262 kilograms of iron, 28 kilograms of stone, and almost 13,000 kilograms of uranium, as well as a couple of floaters. I know some players, friends of mine, that are adamant about catching every last fragment when they are mining, and gravity mining is good for this because, again, the gravity generator will drag the ore into the hole and then hold it there, so it's much tidier and you have less waste. However, the fact that we're on an infinite map, and therefore you may have to look for minerals, but you should never technically run out of them, tells me that it's much more efficient time-wise to go ahead and just put a drill on the front of your ship. We do not have enough resources right now to hook up conveyors. In a perfect world, we would have multiple drills along the front of the ship. You would have a conveyor tube fastened to one of these ports, and it would be running back and go directly into the refinery. I can move the cockpit over, turn my HUD back on so I can remember how much O2 and everything I have. Matter of fact, I think I will move my cockpit over right now. Because I'm going to need to move it later anyway. And now I have a large supply of uranium. So I won't have to worry about running out anytime soon. We're going to put this back. Now, since I'm not using my gravity generator, I'm going to go ahead and cut it up. As I said, I don't do a lot of gravity mining. I don't enjoy gravity mining. I think it's slightly more tedious than watching paint dry. And there's a lot of really good stuff in here. Your gravity generator components and so on and so forth. So now we're going to open up our inventory list again. We'll take our gravity generator components and our hand drill, because I don't plan on using that anytime soon. I don't want to grind up anything else because I'm going to wind up using all of the rest of this stuff. The only things that I will habitually grind up are things that I know for sure that I'm not going to be using. So there we go. Now, again, we're going to get a couple hundred of those. We're going to grab some components, and I'm not really sure how much of everything I need to do this, so we're just going to grab a little bit of everything. Again, I will either grab 10 of something, or if I know I need a lot of it, I'll grab 100 of something, or I'll just grab whatever happens to be around. Some components, like computers, you can pick up 100 of them and you won't notice the weight. We're going to go to the production modules that I mentioned earlier. This is a productivity module. As you can see on the right-hand side, it doesn't take that many components to make. And it increases the productivity of your refinery by 100%. So what we're going to do, in order to build something, in case I went a little bit too fast while we were working with the drill, you have a list of components. Once you call up the item and you ghost it over an area, you have a list of items on the right-hand side. The bottom item, the very first item on the list from the bottom, you need to have at least one of those to start construction. So I would have to have at least one steel plate in order to start this. Now you notice that there's a couple of ports on the back of the productivity module, and there are ports on the back of the refinery. So what we do, anything that shows up in red will not go there. You can click on it all you want, it's not going to work. So I'm going to rotate that. We're going to fasten that down, and because it doesn't use that many components, we're going to go ahead and we're actually going to put down 2 of these. And then we're going to come in and we're going to weld this up, and we're going to be short some small steel tubes, which I didn't think that these used. And we're also going to be short some large steel tubes, which is fine. Now, as you can see, we don't have any more large steel tubes. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to our production, and I believe I only needed 3. So we're going to click on that 3 times. Again, if I held down the control key and I clicked on that, I'd get 10 of those. If I held down the shift key, I'd get 100 of those. Nope, I'm sorry, I miscounted. I had 3 in the project, so I needed 7. So now I need 3. And you can see under the stored materials, the one on the left is what's required, the one on the right is what's available. I have 914.5 kilograms of iron ingots available. I need 3 in order to build one of these things. If I were to queue up a whole bunch, then it would let me know how many I need, and if I started to run out, then the number available would go red, and it would tell me, hey stupid, you're going to run out of material. I used to know how to count. I studied math in school and everything. I used to know how to count when I was younger. Don't ever grow old. It's no fun. It's no fun for you, and it's no fun for other people. Now, I'd be willing to bet. What did I just do? Yep, I went ahead and I built the thing, and then I started to fly off without it. There we go. Now, we're going to take a look. I'm pretty fastidious about putting my toys away, so I'm going to put my small steel tubes back. And now we're going to camp in our seat. We have a productivity module that's incomplete. I'm having a rough day. What did I do wrong? Yep, this one needed small steel tubes. There we go. Now, again, we put our toys away. This gives me an opportunity to check my O2 bottle. Once my O2 bottle gets down to 16%, then I know that I need to start thinking about recharging that. Okay, there we go. Now, we can take a look. The productivity module doesn't actually do anything as far as your control panel is concerned. You can turn it on and you can turn it off. You can show it on the HUD and so forth. But you don't really have to worry about keeping track of it, so I like to turn these off on the terminal because it keeps the control panel tidy. We'll go to our refinery. You can see that our maximum required input has gone up. The thing now uses 3 times the power that it did before, but it also has 300% productivity, which means it's processing 3 times as fast. The benefit being, yes, it's using triple the power, it's processing 3 times as fast. You didn't have to build 2 other refineries in order to get here, because refineries take 1,200 steel plates apiece. So now you can see that the uranium is really flying through the refinery. And we've gone from 2 kilograms to almost 5 kilograms to 18 kilograms. Even though we are burning a significant amount of power to actually run the thing, we're always going to be ahead of the curve. And later on, I may put a couple more of those modules on the refinery once I clear the rest of the ports. Now, something that you need to think about while you're sitting in the cockpit of your ship. I just made the mistake just now. As long as you're in the cockpit of your ship, when you move your mouse around, you're moving your ship. If you step away from your cockpit and you move your mouse around, you're moving your astronaut. So whatever you do, when you're sitting in the cockpit of your ship, don't just go flailing your ship around. That's a really good way to get yourself hurt, get your ship wrecked. Now, we have enough uranium to last us a while, and we have a source of iron, but it's buried up underneath the uranium. So I'd much rather find a better source, and we have some cobalt here for some strange reason. My drill didn't stay on the toolbar. Now what I'm going to do here, this is a good place for us to stop. We have our initial start. We did some modifications to the ship. We explored around. We found a good source of just about every mineral that we need to start with. So we're not going to be lacking in anything. We may not have an overabundance of things, but we've got plenty of power. We have plenty of ice to give us oxygen. As long as we have power and a ship and O2, then we're reasonably secure. Everything else is just time and patience. We're going to go ahead and call it here. When we come back for our next episode, I will have done some off-screen mining, since mining is not the most exciting task ever known to man. And we'll see where we're going to go from here. being a sandbox game, you have to make your own goals and your own fun. You have to make your own benchmarks for success. For someone just getting started, okay, we've managed to get to the point where we know we're not going to die. This is a good start. Now, the next episode, what I want to do is I want to upgrade my apparatus so that I can mine faster, I can mine more efficiently, I can carry more stuff, I can do more refining. And I want to see what other modifications I can make to my ship to make it more efficient and more effective. Thank you very much for watching. I hope it's been fun and educational. If you'd like to see some of my other tutorial videos, then please click on the links to the right. Likes are always appreciated and subscriptions doubly so. If there are any particular situations that you as a Space Engineers player have come up against that you haven't been able to figure out, anything that you would like to do or anything that you would like to see me do to demonstrate for you, please go ahead and leave that in the comments section below. This is Darkhizer signing off. Thank you very much for watching, and have a good night.